Were you built for combat, android?
No, but my program does include military strategy. That is how I was able to anticipate your final tactic and capture you.
You did that. Perhaps you would be better at combat than you think.
Except that I am not programmed to kill.
My improved reflexes have allowed me to kill 84 times. And my improved memory lets me remember each of those 84 faces. Can you understand how that feels?
I am incapable of any feeling.
Why, then I envy you.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Fully Functional, a TNG podcast. I'm Maggie, joined by Jeff and Dory.
Yo.
Jeff and I are huge Star Trek nerds, and Dory's a Star Trek novice, and we are taking her on our first journey through Star Trek The Next Generation. Today we'll be discussing the Season 3 episode, The Hunted, original air date January 6th, 1990. And as always, we'll take it to Dory for the recap.
Okay, bear with me. This is going to be a bit of a mess. There's a lot of shit that happened. So we are at Angosia 3. It's they want to join the Federation, and we meet Prime Minister Nyrok, which, keep in mind, I will never call him that again from this point on, because he is played by James Cromwell.
That is
so
correct.
I will just refer to him as James Cromwell.
Nice.
The most famous that guy.
Yeah, the second I saw him, I was like, I literally wrote in my notes, like, James Cromwell?
This isn't even his his last time in Star Trek. He actually plays a real iconic character one day.
Oh, I actually got to see James Cromwell once in person. I went to the George Stroumboulopoulos show many years ago, and he was one of the guests.
Nice.
Yeah, he was very cool. Anyways, wow, sidetrack corner real quick. Okay, so we're at also, the city design is really cool. The exterior, the inside looks like a mall.
Yeah.
But the exterior looks cool.
Oh, yeah, the exterior, you will see that many more times, because I'm pretty sure that it's a matte painting that they use a lot.
Oh, okay, well, regardless, it looks cool. So Riker thinks it's too stuffy. It's not for him, but that's okay. So then we get told that a prisoner escaped from the penal colony on Lunar 5. This guy has uncontrollable violence, which is like cool, real chill. And he's like killed a few guys and like busted off from the planet, stole a vessel and shit. And he's making a run for it. So Riker wants Data to try to find the vessel. He's trying, and then he sees like there's like an asteroid, and something pops out from like behind the asteroid, and they're like, what? And then they look around the other side of the asteroid, and it's like a smashed up bit of ship, and they're like, wait, what? Because they're also at this point, there's no like vital like life form signals, so they're like, what the fuck are we looking at? And then they like scan the floating thing that went away, and then yeah, they try to get it, and then like they get it. Whatever. So they get this guy. His name is Roga Danar. In all my notes I wrote Roga because I do always stick with the first names of people versus last names. Mm-hmm. But everybody called him Danar, and yeah. I guess like I don't have a preference, and I'm gonna give an exception to myself this one time and call him Danar, even though I wrote no Roga in all my notes. So yeah, Rogar is like so they teleport him onto the ship. And he, zero chill. This man busts in. He is like a gun that they've like disabled, and he is here to fucking party. He throws the gun. He just like goes after, starts fighting with security. And O'Brien's just on the side yelling, more security, more security, more security.
That shit is so funny.
Yes.
Like, because he's just standing there doing nothing, like behind his panel. It's like, more security, and he beats up the guys, and he's just like, more security.
Yeah, Danar's just like kicking that guy in the face, and O'Brien's just like, more security? More security. So then also O'Brien gets his like ass handed to him, and it's like 3 versus 1, and Danar is just going to town on everybody. So then Riker and Worf go down, and the the doors open, and he's like, oh, so Danar gets a hold of like a phaser or whatever, he shoots, and then Worf is like, no. So he like he doesn't say no, nothing happens. It's just like he pushes Riker to the side of the elevator. so the phaser misses him. And then Worf, which I think might be one of my favorite parts of this episode, he sticks his head out very slowly and gingerly, and then makes a run for it, charges at Danar and like tackles him like in football. And I was like, I love you, Worf. Never change. Ugh, the best. So then Riker joins, and they finally, are able to subdue him. Man, that guy's a lot. So they have him in like a cell, and Troy like senses he's having a rough time, so she goes over. He's having like a bad dream, and she's like, what's up? What's going on here? You like bummed or something? And he's like, yeah, I'm real bummed. And he's like, yeah, I killed like 3 people to escape. I could also kill you. And she's like, why? Like, what the fuck? Like, why are you being so mean to me? What the fuck did I do? I'm here, like, out of concern. And he's like, yeah, well, maybe, he's like, maybe I dated a girl with long dark hair and she broke my heart. And now, out of bitterness and resentment, I turned to crime. And then in my notes, I wrote, okay, Ted Bundy. But then, like, he's like, haha, lols. And I was like, okay, so he, like, lied? I don't get it. This man's confusing.
Well, he's, like, playing games with her. He's, like, toying with her.
Yeah, but he just... I don't know. I kept... Like, this episode was really funny to me because Troy's just, like, he has non-violent personality. But, like, I don't know necessarily... Like, he's being an asshole. So, like, I don't... Not that being an asshole is, like, attributed to violent, but what is a violent personality?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what that means exactly. But because the thing is, like, he's also...
I don't know if they knew what it meant.
Because he's also being an asshole to her for, like, no fucking reason. Like, she made it really clear that she went down to see if he's okay. And he immediately goes on the offensive. And the thing... And his, like, training and shit has nothing to do with the way he is, like, speaking to people. So this doesn't... He's just being an asshole. He's just being a jerk to her for no reason. But we'll get into, like, what... Okay, basically, so he's a soldier, and he was... These soldiers, they were basically, like, mentally and physically manipulated and changed. Their like cellular makeup was changed or something. It's so like they would like everything would be enhanced so they could like fight, they're like, and
super
shit,
soldiers,
defend.
basically.
Yeah, they're the Winter Soldier, sort of.
Yeah.
Why's it got to be winter though?
Because the Summer Soldier sounds too fun.
Yeah.
The Fall Soldier isn't fun. Yeah, it just... Winter probably sounds the most intimidating, to be honest.
Well, winter is coming.
The Spring Soldier just kind of sounds like a musical.
Yeah.
The Summer Soldier is lulz, and then the Fall or Autumn Soldier, I don't know. That sounds like a war movie, like a romance war movie. Yeah. It doesn't sound intimidating. The Winter Soldier, though, that was like, oh shit, that Winter Soldier's seen shit. That just sounds more intense. So basically, these soldiers, they've become prisoners at the penal colony, because they don't think that they should be like they aren't like ready to be, or they're not like able to integrate with the general public or something. I'm not entirely clear if they tried and it didn't work, or they just like the government just chose to put them on the penal colony like in Lunar 5 anyways. I don't know. I guess we'll get into that after.
They didn't really try very hard is what it's implying.
Yeah. Yeah, basically these soldiers have been like conditioned to survive at any cost. And their like cellular structure is like fucked, which is why like they couldn't, detect life forms on the vessel or whatever. So Danar makes it real clear that he's like not going back to the penal colony. He will escape the shit out of the Enterprise. He's gonna do it. And he is, honestly, this felt like not a horror movie, but like a thriller. And I was invested. I was invested. Like this, honestly, this was... I enjoyed this. So Raynar, like we've already know that Raynar. Oh my god, I'm mixing his
Jim
first
Raynor.
and last name. Oh god. You know what I did write in my notes? He kind of looks like Kevin Nealon, but like different.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if he was
does.
Kevin Nealon's cousin, but also like a little like dash of kind of being hot, if you will. Like
Yeah, like an almost hot Kevin Nealon.
yeah. So like it was weird. Every time this guy spoke, I just was staring at his face and I'm like, I can't figure out if you're good looking or not. Also, he had like cold shoulders on his shirt, which kind of made me laugh, which was like
I
probably
didn't
like,
notice
it's supposed
that.
to be, because like it wasn't on purpose. I think it's supposed to be like because he was fighting and it's like his outfit got ruined. But every time he turned, you could see both his shoulders were like showing, and I was like, oh, your jumpsuit's got a cold shoulder. Look at you, fashion boy. Okay, so. Oh, I forgot. Okay, so then Data comes to visit Danar, and Roger's like, because he thinks that like because they've both been programmed to like do certain things, maybe there's a way to like, deprogram or change it. And I wrote maybe just like what was it, restart the just do a software update.
Have you tried restarting?
Yeah, just turn it off and turn it back on again.
Patch it.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Just you have like a button like Data to like start over to refresh. So, Danar's like, I've killed 84 times and my improved memory lets me remember all those faces. Can you understand how that feels? And then Data, and like, I don't know if it's a burn, but I kind of laughed at it like it was a burn. And Data's like, I'm incapable of any feeling. It's like, sorry, bro, you're on your own. Can't relate to all that murder. So then the vessel from Angosia shows up to take Danar, and he's like, abso-fucking-lutely not am I going back there. So they get right, they're like trying to like get him to like the transport room or something, and it's all like, pixeled whatever, but he's fighting it, and they're like, no, stop fighting it, you're gonna die. And then his like arm goes through and it's like regular, and then there's an explosion, and I was like, oh shit, did this guy fucking just die? No, he didn't. He's just like on the run in the Enterprise trying to get out of there. I did laugh a few times because his like sneaky soldierness was like going flat against the wall sometimes, which is like, I used to do that in high school because they played the James Bond theme song before like announcements and the national anthem in the morning, and I thought I was being real funny, but I was 14 and an idiot, and this is a grown-ass man doing the exact same thing I did when I was 14. I guess his stakes are though higher. Mine was just getting to class on time, and his is life or death. Anyways, so he's going around the ship like trying to like fuck around with shit and to like cause misdirections, and like he fights with Worf, and I was like, you fucking hurt Worf, I will kill you. Oh yeah, Roga tries to like get a phaser to like overload. Worf saves us all because he's a king, an icon. And oh yeah, oh my god, so then like he goes into engineering and Geordi's knocked out, and then Worf busts in, he's like, Geordi, and I'm like, that man hurts Geordi, there will be I'm like, there will be consequences to those actions. I will do something, I don't know what and how, but I will be angry as fuck. And then we do see Geordi's like on the floor, and I was like, you no longer have any bit of hotness that I might have thought in you because you did this to Geordi. So yeah, like Danar, you're on your own. Like, I'm not rooting, well, I'm a little bit rooting for you just for like the the what's it called, the principle of it, of like his situation.
Yeah.
But him himself, he sucks. But I will say his like plan is kind of good-ish. He does a lot of misdirects and eventually gets to like a transporter thing. So then he transports into the vessel of like the Angosian people who are there to like take him. And he's like, hey boys, let's party. And then he goes back to the Lunar 5, to the penal colony, and like, I guess basically riots. He like gets a bunch of the other soldiers and they go to the capital city, and James Cromwell is like, Picard, do something. And Picard's like, No, I think this is your problem now, bro. You created this problem. You turned these people into soldiers, and then once you were done with them, you just like tossed them to the side. Didn't want to rehabilitate them, didn't want to take care of them. You're like, oh, they did their duty, they're done. We don't give a shit. Which is like, I didn't see it coming that Star Trek would like take this, like make this so blatantly like veterans. Shit, but like good for them, truly, because I like that Picard is just like, you made your bed, fucking lie in it. You don't want these guys to like you, because you know that they can take you, because they're all exceptionally like they've got the skills. They can take you fucking down. James Cromwell, just fucking listen, because if you don't and like then you're fucked. So like later, Gator, bye. And then James Cromwell's like, well, fuck. And Daynar's like, haha, time to negotiate. And then the episode ends. Wait, is there anything at the end? I don't even remember.
No, he just kind of leaves them to figure it out on their own.
Oh, yeah. So then that's a good exit. He's just like, bye. Yeah. I guess that's it for this episode. I liked it. I actually quite like this episode.
Yeah, me too. So the allegory is quite blatantly supposed to be Vietnam veterans, which is obviously something that we as people born when this was topical don't really understand very well. But I'm sure that you've seen more than enough media which has at least gone into what the whole Vietnam veteran problem was. And basically it was, for those who don't know, it was a bunch of veterans came home after Vietnam and nobody really wanted them around. They weren't seen as war heroes the way that people who came back from Korea or came back from the Second World War were. Vietnam was a very unpopular war. People wanted out of it for years before the United States actually did get out of it. And the people who came back were not really looked upon very favorably, and they weren't treated very well by their government, who offered basically no supports for people who came back with like terrible PTSD and whatnot. And so a lot of them became vagrants, and a lot of them became kind of misfits of society, and society didn't want them. And this is a very clear allegory to that. It was quite intentional. They actually wanted more of a Rambo storm the storm the Capitol thing going on at the end, but they didn't have the budget for it. And because of that, the writing team was actually kind of torn on whether or not they thought this ending was successful.
Yeah, I think like when they made this episode, like this was obviously like very specifically meant to refer to the situation with Vietnam veterans, but I think it still applies today in like maybe not in like the exact same ways, but like his sort of he's left with all this after effects of war, which is like very easily paralleled to like being left with PTSD and like all these mental health issues, and the army does fuck all about it.
Yep.
And a lot of times there's a lot of stories of people who basically they get diagnosed with a personality disorder so that the military doesn't have to pay for therapy, because it's like, well, you already had this issue and it has nothing to do with us, so we don't have to pay for your health care.
That's fucked up.
But they'll gladly sink another $10 billion into making sure that they can buy more bombs.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, though, with the military, isn't it? Is like they love to go on and on about being patriotic and, talking about, oh, our military, oh, the army, they give their lives for us. But then, like, who's actually, nobody, like, they do stuff for, the people back here. But then, like, nobody does anything for these people. So, like, it's such, like, fake, it's not, like, it's all just fucking stupid. It's so hypocritical.
Fake triotism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, even now it's like, support our troops, but, like, you don't actually support them when they come home.
No,
and
not at all.
If any soldier is like, actually what we did was fucked up and we shouldn't keep doing this, they're like, well, fuck you.
Yep.
You know? It's like, here's someone who actually was there and fought these wars and saw what happened, and they're like, this is fucked up. Like, not every soldier is like that, but, like, people specifically dismiss the soldiers who do say, hey, no, we were wrong, and this is fucked.
Yeah, they get ignored a lot.
Yeah, I always think back to, like, when Donald Trump, I think when he was running for president, there was that Gold Star family whose son was killed in action, and Donald Trump just spent so much time being like, oh, the military, oh, the blah, 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 like, oh, support the troops, and then made fun of this family. And then he made fun of John McCain for being a prisoner of war.
Yeah.
So you can't be support the troops and then shit on them. Like, make it make sense. Like, you can't do both.
Okay, well, the thing is that it's not actually it's not actually something that they believe. It's more of a political ploy.
Well, no, I know.
Support our troops is a very popular phrase until it comes to somebody you don't like, in which case it doesn't apply anymore.
Yeah, it just, like, it's so blatantly hypocritical and so blatantly obvious that, like, they don't... I suppose, like, these people live in their own fucking worlds. You can't with... I mean...
Yeah.
Well, you're expecting ideological consistency from opportunists,
I know.
which is not what's going on.
Yeah.
I know. People on that side always just will use anything to kind of fit a narrative they want to pull at the time, so...
Lots of people will do that.
Yeah, but for this sort of thing, it just... Because, like, we know here... I mean, I don't know very much about what Canada does for our veterans, but I do know just from, like, TV that in the States it's really bad.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's, like, a massive amount of homelessness from, like, veterans.
There is, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But I don't have no idea. I can't imagine it's, like, super great in Canada either, but...
Canada has a lot of... Canada's government doesn't do as much for them as we could, but there are also a lot of other support networks for them here, which is good. So, like, for instance, the Royal Canadian Legion has existed for God knows how long now, like 100 years. Mm-hmm. And they're quite successful at helping veterans. But the other problem, this is both in the United States and in Canada, is it's not like a widespread thing anymore because military manpower in the Western countries has scaled down as technology scaled up. Mm-hmm. So there are so few veterans in comparison to previous wars and whatnot, where it was just everyone out there with a rifle.
Yeah, we don't have we just don't have as many veterans as well.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, like I said, I might be wrong about this, but as far as I can tell, recruiters in Canada aren't as predatory as they are in the States.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. So we don't have as many people, like, in the military also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just would sort of hope that because, like, Canada has such, like, a... I don't want to say boner for Remembrance Day, but we do fucking go to town on Remembrance Day. I would hope that, like, they truly, like, celebrate veterans for one day. I would hope there'd be more.
Yeah, it is. So. It is seemingly a better situation here than the States, but also that's not, like, an incredibly high bar.
Very true, yeah.
I should just mention, I don't really, like, when I say boner for Remembrance Day, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I don't know if that sounds disrespectful.
No, I know what you mean. It's very, like...
like, people get yelled at if they're I've seen people get yelled at if they're not wearing a poppy. Like,
yeah.
It's a pin. Calm down. Nobody's disrespecting, like, veterans if they don't wear a poppy. But...
Well, also for the war that those are supposed to represent, like, no human being who is currently alive knew the people who died in that war.
That's not true. Well, okay.
No, knew them.
Yeah, here's the thing. Yeah, because Remembrance Day started out as a thing for purely World War I.
That's right.
But World War II has been added to that.
Yeah, I know.
So there are still people alive that knew people in World War II.
No, I'm aware that it is spread out to basically include veterans in general.
Yeah.
Especially as we get further and further away from the World Wars. But, like, it was created for specifically for the First World War. And even after World War II happened, it was still a World War I specific Memorial Day for quite some time, and began to include the World War II stuff afterwards. And I don't know, it's a really weird situation because the poppy, obviously the entire, what do you call it? The entire symbolism of it is from the First World War.
Yeah.
And everything about like how horrible the trench warfare was in that. And while the Second World War saw more casualties and saw a lot more action, it wasn't about trench warfare, luckily.
Yeah.
But I mean, also Canada's more of a World War One. That was our time to shine.
Yes.
Versus World War II.
Yeah, we definitely had a more important participation in the First World War.
We had a lot of important participation in World War II.
I didn't say we had none.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No.
Between the two, World War One is, I think, what we're more known for.
Yeah.
Sort of, for anybody who thinks outside of Canada about what war we're...
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Our accomplishments are more well known.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when I went to France...
I don't want to say accomplishments. It's so weird to say about war, but
it is.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Like when I went to France years ago, we went by the Vimy Ridge Memorial, and our leader was like, "Hey, look, okay, to all the Canadians, Vimy Ridge." And from all my years in elementary school of like Remembrance Day and World War One, I was like, "Vimy Ridge? Oh my God!"
Yeah.
And no, it's. But like you don't see a lot of like, other than I guess like Netherlands stuff, you don't really see a lot of hey, Canada, World War II, like not monuments, but like shit from that.
Well, in the Second World War, Canadian soldiers were often sent out on like cannon fodder runs, which is real fucking sad. So, like for instance, my grandfather was a paratrooper in the Second World War, and he and his company, what do you call it? So they were jumping out of airplanes on D-Day, and fully half of them didn't even reach the ground alive.
Yeah.
Boy, Jesus.
I think...
Yeah.
Oh, geez. I think... Okay, is that the subject of A Bridge Too Far?
Possibly. I mean, there were a lot of paratroopers on D-Day.
Because I think a family member of mine, I think it's my great-uncle, I think it's my grandfather's brother, who was also a paratrooper, and he was at that... I don't know if it's the same incident, but at least an incident very similar, where... my dad always told me that it was the same incident that the movie A Bridge Too Far is based off of.
Okay.
Where, they just got picked off in the air. And basically my great-uncle survived because he got dropped on the wrong side of the bridge accidentally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was he was part of was he part of the Polish offensive, or was he...
No, I think because he escaped Poland and joined the British Army.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was a common thing to happen.
Yeah, I was just wondering if he had been fighting for Canada, then the two of them might have known each other, because there were only like 2 Canadian paratrooper battalions. So yeah. Yeah,
he moved to Canada afterwards.
Okay.
After the war.
That would be so cute. They knew each other.
Yeah. And my grandfather was actually part of the Warsaw Resistance.
Oh, cool.
Ooh. Yeah. And he got a medal from the Prime Minister of Poland a few years before he died. Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah. Him and a bunch of other people.
Take that, Nazis.
Yeah. I don't have a cool story. My grandfather was stationed in Ottawa, and when I don't remember if I've told this story on here or not, but they were just here in Ottawa. I don't really know what they were doing, but then
they were defending Prime Minister William Mackenzie King. Thank you very much.
So, party. But he was he was doing like a basketball tournament, and on the day that they're like, the war is over, he's like, okay, ready to go back home to Toronto, and they're like, excuse me, we have a basketball final this afternoon. They wouldn't let him leave until they finished the basketball championships.
That's amazing.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, he's like, it's done. I'd like to go home. And they're like, no, you have one more basketball game to play.
That's really funny.
Thanks, Canadian Army. Actually,
Clearly doing the important things.
I don't know what, like, a section he was part of, but, you know, the basketball division of the Canadian military, I guess. I mean, during his time, though, he did get arrested. Because his superior officer called him a slur.
Oh.
So he punched him in the face and he got arrested.
Okay, you know
That's
what?
fair.
Good for him.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What a party. He gets
Yeah.
arrested and then he has to play in the basketball tournament. Oh, we do have a nice picture of him in his uniform, though, when he came back to Toronto. Or when he left. I don't actually know when it was taken. But it's cute. It's a nice picture.
Speaking of like military stuff, while we're on the topic of them going through controversial things for this episode, there was something else that was controversial in the episode, at least in the Star Trek universe, that for some reason they didn't even touch on, and that's the fact that this is genetic enhancement.
Yeah.
Which genetic enhancement is very within Star Trek. It is it's kind of like a boogeyman. It is banned within the Federation, so I'd imagine that the fact that these guys were genetically enhanced would literally bar them from joining the Federation in the first place. But you know, it's just little things.
Not necessarily. I don't. Oh, maybe.
Well, I mean, by the end, they weren't part of it yet. Because Picard was like, hey,
I know.
like, you sort this and we'll get back to you later.
Yeah, in the Star Trek universe, genetic enhancement is just considered straight up bad, basically.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no ifs, ands, or
yes.
buts about it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a way you can do genetic enhancement in a way that doesn't, like, just go into full-blown eugenics.
Yeah, sadly enough, it's a very complicated thing, unfortunately, and a lot of sci-fi has...
Yeah, I think in... sorry, Jeff, to interrupt.
Are you?
I think that in real world... I just wanted to get one point about real world before back to the episode. I think in real world circumstances, it would be impossible to do ethically.
Yeah, probably. A lot of sci-fi has tackled it in one form or another, and usually the way that they tackle it when they're going into talking about it as an allegory, they will either approach it from the perspective that Star Trek did, where it can lead to terrible things from the actual people who are genetically enhanced. Doriel, more on that in a moment. Or it leads in the direction of it becoming a required commodity where it gives people advantages within society because their parents can afford them. And
it's like Gattaca.
yeah, they're both complicated. It's a complicated answer to a complicated question. So Dory, in the Star Trek universe, this all happens before TNG, so it's not anything you'd have any experience with, really, but there is a very well-known character as a villain from the original series. He was in a single episode of the original series and then was the main villain for the second film called The Wrath of Khan.
Oh, yes. Benedict Cumberbatch in the movies.
Yes. So Khan is a genetically enhanced human from the 1990s, I believe.
Yeah.
And he was part of something called the Eugenics Wars.
They wrote the story in the 60s, so.
Yeah. He was part of something called the Eugenics Wars, which was a series of battles and what do you call it, insurrections. It's implied across the across the eastern continents, but they're not very specific about it, to be honest. Khan is somebody who managed to take over huge parts of, I think, the Middle East and China. And he basically conquered them and then was tried for war crimes, and rather than executing him and his cohorts, they put them all into suspended animation, threw them on a ship, and said, fuck off, like, we're just sending you out to nowhere. And then
As one does.
Yeah, and Kirk's ship accidentally finds them and wakes them up, and it's like, oh shit, this is Khan. And Khan does all this fucked up shit where he tries to take over the ship, and he manipulates someone to go with him, and basically he's just a stronger human. They don't do a good job of exploring the controversy of genetic enhancement in it. However, the idea that they go for in it is that superior ability breeds superior ambition.
Yeah.
So it's kind of seen as a slippery slope argument, where it's like, oh, we can't do this because then we're going to have a bunch of evil masterminds. And it's like, that's a little reductive or reductionist.
When you said eugenics wars, all I can picture is just like two groups of people fighting each other. That battle's done. They go back, get adjusted, and like get more like shit changed, and they go back and they just like, it's like they keep digivolving, if you will, and they just keep going back and forth.
There is plenty of stuff they could have done with it. But we know practically nothing about it, and we don't even know when in the Star Trek universe the timeline from our universe actually like goes off. Because I mean, the eugenics wars, they're mentioned once or twice after that, but it's never like an explicit discussion about it. There just seems to be this. They're inconsistent about their timeline stuff way back then, because Star Trek is not heavy on lore.
Yeah. But also, like, they had to work around the fact that, like, you know, in the original series, which was during the 60s, they said, like, oh, this happens in the 1990s, you know?
Yep.
And now it's 2001, and the eugenics wars didn't happen, so...
Yes.
It's
2001? Oh, no.
Thankfully. I'm glad we missed that war.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like... Because when I think about, like, eugenics and genetic enhancement, like... The problem's, like, I don't think it's like, oh, we shouldn't do this because we're gonna develop this race of, like, super evil, super villain things. It's more like, no, we're going to genocide people with disabilities, people of different races, like, all sorts of gay people probably, like, people with all sorts of different things are, like, going to get not just unalived, but, like, never existed.
Yes.
Which is fucked up. So, like, that's my concern more than, like, oh, they're gonna be evil. You know?
And the idea that somebody would decide what is, like, worth saving and what's not. That's gross.
Yeah. My issues with it definitely go the Deus Ex route, where it's like, oh, well, only the wealthy will be able to afford to do this, and they're just going to give their kids even more of an advantage in society, and there we are.
I never asked for this. So in terms of the episode, I really liked it, but I feel like maybe because I'm not living in the context of that era and, like, being more conscious of, like, what they were specifically going for, which is something that we're detached from. Yes. But to me, the episode seemed kind of not necessarily muddled in its messaging, but it was touching on a lot of different things, and, like, maybe didn't give enough attention to, you know, any specific one, in my opinion. Because when I was watching this episode, I was struggling to figure out whether this was supposed to be allegorical or speculative. Like,
okay.
If this was making... Fair. Like, now I know, like, this was specifically about Vietnam veterans.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm like, is this supposed to be a commentary on how we treat veterans, or is this supposed to be a speculative, like, scare tactic of, like, this is why genetically engineered soldiers are a bad idea?
Right,
sort of thing.
Honestly, I didn't even think about the second one. I only was like, I just assumed this whole thing was like, oh, they treat veterans bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was all that came into my head during this. I didn't even think about the genetic stuff.
Yeah, and I think, discussing it more, I think that was probably less of, or probably not even, anything that they were trying to do with this episode.
I think what does frustrate me about their approach, despite, like, the amount of time that they spent on the chase scenes, which I get it, they're good, but like the second chase scene is something like 15 minutes long, so, like, that's quite a lot of time to dedicate to an episode that is largely attempting to be philosophical.
They definitely could have put more time into
I think the problem that they ran into here, and probably why I don't think the episode is as strong as it could be, is that this character, who is flat out a murderer, he is immediately portrayed as a victim, and that's fine. But Trek has condemned people for less.
Yeah.
Much less.
Yeah.
And he has cold-blooded murdered people.
Yeah.
Within the confines of the episode.
Yeah. The difference might be that he was genetically altered, and that's like, you know,
they're arguing that he wasn't in control of it, and like, yes,
yeah.
that is a fair argument, but people are dead, and that's a problem.
Yes, yeah.
But it's okay. They happen off screen.
Yeah. That's why when Troy was talking to Picard, she's like, I'm not opening the door for him. I just think, like, there's more going on here. And so this is definitely, like, a 90s, 80s attitude of, like, oh, he doesn't have, like, an inherently violent personality and stuff, which...
Yeah.
I disagree that that's even a thing, like, having a...
Yes.
Like...
Yeah.
Like, there's people who... Okay. I think there are people who have violent personalities, but not in the way that most people think of it, as this, like, inherent, like, hardwired thing.
Yeah, it's behavior that can be
Yeah,
taught.
yeah. It's a behavior thing, like, that has to do with mental health and trauma and all this shit. You know?
It's not just a cute personality quirk of like,
Yeah.
you know, some people can, you know, crack their toes. Some people murder for fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Like,
what they do.
there's-
Good for them.
Yeah. Some people experience excessive violence. Like, well, that's not a trait. That's just...
Yeah, because she's like, I don't sense a criminal personality with him. And it's like, okay, I think that the idea of a criminal personality is messed up, basically. I'm not sure of the correct word. Like, I don't think that's a thing, because crime does not exist in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. If you were to... Because most crime happens because someone's basic needs aren't being met, you know?
Yeah.
Whether that's, like, physical, like in the form of, like, food and shelter and that kind of stuff, or emotional. You know, they're not getting, like, the love and attention, and, like, they're not being cared for or whatever. So if you, like, sort of, if everyone got those things, like, crime would still exist, but it would be way, way less, you know?
Yeah. Troy doesn't seem to recognize the fact that there's a spectrum of crime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, there's some woman in the States who, like, something about, like, her postal code and sending one of her kids to, like, a school that was outside of her postal code.
Oh, yeah.
Or something. And she got arrested and was given a huge sentence.
She basically, like...
She committed technically, but, like, it should have really been a slap on the wrist type thing. Yeah. Like, it's truly not a big deal in the grand scheme of really anything, but, like, it's still technically a crime. So, but then, like, versus someone like a serial killer, like Troy, they're not equal. Yeah.
Yeah.
plus also, so, like, how many stories have we heard of serial killers and stuff who, like, who, like, they're always the people that, or, like, sometimes they're always the people that, like, oh wow, I didn't know, like, they just seemed like the most normal person I've ever met. Like, it's unassuming. Like, people, it's not obvious.
Yeah.
Like, we obviously there's certain patterns, but, like, I don't think there's inherently a criminal personality.
Yeah.
They're just behaviors and shit. It's, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I definitely think that there are some people who are,
there's people with bad intentions.
Yeah.
Of course.
But I was
like,
going to say there are some people who are disturbed, but I feel like that it might be ableist to put it in that way. But
I do get what you mean, though.
Yeah, like, yeah. Those people do exist. I'm not saying they don't, but it's such a tiny, tiny fraction of people who are considered criminals, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that case you were talking about, I think I know the one you mean. If I remember correctly, what happened was, in order to for her daughter to go to a better school, because schools have, like, districts, and you can only, like, the students all have to come from that district. she basically put her daughter's address as her grandmother's address so that she would qualify to go to that school. And then they found out about it, and she went to fucking jail for it. Like, shit that is not... Like, I'm sorry. I'm sure that's happened millions of times. You know? Like, that's not a big deal.
This is also, who does this hurt? Who does this hurt?
Yeah.
Nobody. Versus there's people who get off of, like, murder and assault and all this. Like, I bet... Like, I don't know what this woman's, sentence was, but it makes me think of... He who must not be named, who's on the swim team and assaulted this woman behind the dumpster, and he got 3 months.
Yeah.
Yep.
He spent 3 months in jail for assaulting a woman whose life was like never going to be the same. 3 months, and I bet you this woman, who did the postal code, I bet you she got longer jail time than he did.
Undoubtedly,
definitely.
Yeah.
And it is important to note that. If it's the case I'm thinking about, that it was a black woman who did that, as opposed to like this, white college kid. And sorry, in terms of, back to the episode, I think a lot of the episode is a really good, in my opinion, is a decent allegory for veterans who come back and suffer with PTSD, and people are just like, because a lot of PTSD symptoms are like being violent, like, having anger outbursts, like being very sensitive, like being overreactionary if you sense danger, and like having, a lot of different triggers and stuff. And a lot of people, mental health is still very stigmatized and stuff. So a lot of people just view them as like violent and crazy and stuff when they're actually like just suffering, and like that's not an excuse if they like, hurt people in their lives. But it's like people don't try to treat the problem. They're just like, they just want to sweep them under the rug, which is basically what happened. And the Prime Minister, James Cromwell, he says like, this was decided by the people. They're the ones that chose the settlement solution. And I'm like,
you're also the Prime Minister. I think you can overrule.
It also seems like y'all didn't ask the soldiers what they wanted,
Nope.
Yeah.
Like, and you didn't even try to fix the problem. And it's revealed that they did not, they said, we knew there might be issues reverting them back, like in terms of the genetic alterations, and they didn't tell them that.
Yeah, well, Troy has a line. So like when at the end, when they're back at the capital city, Troy says, there are methods of treatment. Until you try them, how can you know they won't work? Even a partial recovery could give them some peace. And then this guy was like, it was the will of the people, and Troy was like, to allow them to suffer. And then there's another line. Sorry, my notes are an absolute fucking mess. But there was something that somebody said about like, about the risks. But I can't find it. Why didn't I just write a new page?
Yeah.
Well, this is my own issue.
I think what you're getting at is, it's like they needed these skills. It was a risk that had to be taken. And then Worf speaks up and says, did you inform them of these risks?
Oh, yeah.
And the guy was like, we were trying to help them survive the war, which means
he
no,
dodged.
they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I found where I wrote it. It was in the regular spot up here. I'm just looking at my stupid fucking margins. Oh my God. My notes. I just wrote Picard and Troy spitting facts, and Worf as well.
Yeah.
Because, they just...
it's like they basically studied the treatment theoretically, but didn't actually didn't give them a shot.
Yeah, so it's all... I hope... Not that, like... I don't want to say, like, I hope the soldiers, like... No, let's just say... No, okay, let me word this properly. I hope that something came from that discussion that will allow the soldiers to be able to have a nice life while James Cromwell, the character, not the actor, to clarify, He like maybe is no longer prime minister, and maybe I mean, I'm just throwing this out there, maybe he does he gets moved to the penal colony, because these very much seem like some crimes against humanity, if you will. So I hope there's consequences for him, more than just giving the soldiers negotiating. I would really, in an ideal world, hope that the people who made these decisions will be held responsible and, suffer the consequences of their actions. But, I mean, we don't see that, so.
Yeah.
So, in my head, it did happen.
Yeah.
Because nobody can tell me it didn't.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
Also, the other guy who was like talking back to Troy, I hope he went to the penal colony too. I did not like I do not like him.
Yeah.
Suffer the consequences of your shitty actions. You make a bad decision, and it's also people forget that these are human beings. These aren't experiments. They're living they're people.
Yeah.
And they're just like, you know what? We need them right now. We can make them useful to us now. And then when it's done, we don't need them anymore. Then like whatever. But it's people.
Yeah.
It's not weapons. It's not like a tool. These are fucking human beings. And to be able to just so callously just like, well, goodbye.
Yeah.
Just like go to the penal colony, hang out there. We'll deal with you later. Just like jail. All of them.
Mm-hmm. And it's a thing that is happening in the real world right now.
Yes.
It's like
jail, all of them.
Yeah, seriously. It's like we used you to fight this war, and we altered you. In the episode, it's like they physically altered them, right? But in the real world, it changes you too, because like the training is specifically designed to sort of like break you down and build you back up, and like create certain responses in you, and then your experiences, which are very traumatic, change you too. So it's like, we did this to you, and now we're just gonna throw you in the garbage can. And like, at the very least, the Ngojans provided for their basic needs, which is way more than can be said about what's happening in the real world.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like
And also get these soldiers some therapy.
Exactly, yeah. And
everybody should have therapy. Therapy for all.
Oh, yeah, and I wanted to address before how you were saying he was being like an asshole to Troy and stuff like that. It's kind of implied through the episode that, a lot of the people that did these alterations to him were also called counselors and doctors, so he just has an inherent distrust and anger towards people in those positions, which I think is fair, that he doesn't immediately like trust what's going on.
I wouldn't expect him to necessarily trust her, but I think also I am biased because I like Troy, and I don't want to see somebody be rude to her. So, like, I do get it. Like, when he was like, oh, his first instructor called himself counselor, I wrote in my notes, twist. So, like, I do get it. However, I just don't want people being mean to Troy.
Yeah. That's fair. Fair enough.
She comes in to help, and then, like, yeah, he tells her, like, basically the Ted Bundy story. Because Ted Bundy's thing was, like, he attacked women who had long dark hair with a middle part, because, like, that was what his, like, ex-girlfriend's hair was. I don't think it was exclusively this look, but he, like, mostly went for women who had that look.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fucking gross, but just gross in general. Just leave women alone. Holy shit.
A friend of ours, she was doing some research on serial killers, like, around the world, because she wanted to see if there was, like, a difference along, like, cultural lines in terms of, like, why they did what they did and stuff like that. And turns out, no, it's basically always women.
Yeah.
The motive is like they hate women. It's like,
it's
my mom was mean to me. My mom was too nice to me. Like, it's all over the place.
It's like, we get it. You have mommy issues. Like, oh my God, go to therapy. Don't kill anybody.
Yeah.
Like, it's it always comes back to men hating women.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Or just misogyny, the patriarchy.
Why is it that, like, the thing around, like, women having daddy issues is that they become, like, super slutty or something like that, and it's like, okay, fine, that's a thing, and men will find it desirable, and yet when a man has mommy issues, he just straight up kills people.
Well,
Great.
It's the same. It's that same thing of, like, I'm sure I've said on the podcast at some point where, like, men, the discourse is like men's biggest fear is rejection and women's biggest fear is being murdered.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, it's the patriarchy.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes back to.
And the thing is
again.
like, I'm not trying to dismiss the amount of trauma that can be caused to a person by their mother, like, especially for men and stuff. It's
for sure.
It's unfortunate that, like, the patriarchy has set up this system where they have no means to, deal with that properly.
Right.
And society, like, gives them so much entitlement. They think they're owed this, that, like, when they don't get it, it's just like society also tells them, like, if you're not getting what you deserve, like, be violent.
Yeah. Just because your mother treated you poorly doesn't mean you can take it out on other women.
Yeah.
That, like, it's nothing. Women are not one single entity. Like, if your mom isn't nice to you, that has nothing to fucking do with me. I don't know your mom.
Yeah.
Like, whatever she's done to you, that sucks. That's terrible. But, like, it has nothing to do with anybody else. That's between you and your mom. Mm-hmm. And hopefully a doctor where you can get therapy in the future to help with your mental health. But, like,
yeah,
we're not interchangeable. We can't answer for other people, like, suffer consequences for other people's actions. Mm-hmm. We're not interchangeable.
Yeah. Because even actually, this is a great sort of segue, because Patrick Stewart has actually sort of talked about this before, in that when he was growing up, his father was very abusive to his mother, and he advocates for, like, women's rights and stuff. And he said that as he grew up, he realized, like, that, I think his father was suffering from PTSD, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember if it was specifically PTSD, but it was definitely, like, some severe mental health issues and stuff. And he says, like, obviously he never excused what his father did, but, like, now he supports more mental health things for men because of, like, just because of what happened in his family,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That
makes
like
sense.
if his dad's suffering had been helped, his mother would not have suffered, and he wouldn't have suffered,
Yeah.
So, like, men being able to heal properly is actually advantageous for women, because a lot of that suffering gets taken out on us.
Right.
Because a lot of toxic masculinity, that is, like, really bad for men also. It's not just like women experiencing shit like that, but it's also really shit for men, because they're part of toxic masculinity, right, is you can't be in touch with your feelings because that's feminine. Like, so that just gives a whole generation of people who don't know how to express themselves other than through, like, violence or anger or through, like, something, just a bad way. And it fucks up everything. Like, people, it affects men, I would say, basically as much. It's just don't fucking be
in a different way.
Toxic masculinity is bad for everybody. It doesn't help a single person. It just makes everything fucking worse. Just just don't.
Yeah. Just, if you can, find help, you know. I know, like, therapy isn't necessarily accessible to everybody, but, like...
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You know, just try, you know, and don't just make the women in your life your therapists, you know. Like, when I say this, a lot of people are like, oh, so, like, I'm supposed to go get, like, no emotional support from... Like, yes, of course. Like, of course your partner should support you and, you know, help you through rough times and that kind of stuff, but you can't make them your only support. You know, you really have to branch out and try to get support from a lot of different areas. You know, basically, like, if you can't afford therapy and stuff, try to broaden your support network. You know, reach out to multitudes of people, you know, because the more people in your life that you can talk about things with, be honest and vulnerable with, like, the much better your life can be.
Yeah,
you know?
Especially you can get different perspectives, because if you're just getting perspectives from people who are like you, you're shouting into an echo chamber.
Yeah.
So if you're expanding who you speak to, then, you know, you can actually get other people's perspectives of how certain behaviors affect them, and then how that can, you know, help you or whatnot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's actually, like, an interesting example of, like, that's typically the reason why women tend to get through breakups easier than men, because women have larger support networks, and men tend to just lean on their romantic partners for support, like, solely and entirely.
Guys, talk to your bros. Open
Yeah,
up,
exactly.
share,
Like,
reach into your heart and tell them how you feel, and share your woes with your bros.
Yeah, share your woes with your bros. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like,
Make that a t-shirt. Trademark.
Yeah.
Trademark. Can I say trademark? Is that a thing that works? Does it have to be written?
patent pending.
God, I
say
hope
this.
so.
Yeah, in the future, if I ever see something that says share your woes with your bros, I'm suing.
Yeah. Yeah, because one thing that, like, I always genuinely feel bad for men as a whole on is that and these are generalities, right? This isn't, like, true of every specific man, but in general, you can't be vulnerable and honest with your other male friends, which I think is, like, such a loss and such a tragedy. Because men, like, there's this whole, like, even if you're, like, a nerd or whatever, like, you don't think you're a jock or whatever, there's still this, like, you know, thing of, like, having to be macho, having to prove you're a dude, you know, like a real man. Yeah, I just think it would be beneficial, because then, like, you could actually support each other if you just gave up the pretense of, like, pretending that you don't have feelings, you know?
Everybody's got feelings.
Yeah.
Like was it REM song? Everybody hurts?
Yeah.
Sometimes. Everybody hurts.
Yeah.
Stop pretending you don't. Everybody does. In one way or another.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I'm sorry. I'm just, like, this is something I feel passionately about. Is if you reach out to someone and it doesn't work out, I really hope that doesn't discourage you, because sometimes you just have to keep trying with different people, or even sometimes with the same person, and eventually you will find those people who are your true support system. End of spiel.
You can do it. To everybody listening, I believe in you.
Yes.
Reach for the stars.
Sorry, we went a lot of
your bros.
We went a lot of different places on this episode.
We did. Yeah. Very much so.
Well, there's a lot of, like, dealing with mental health and stuff, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
We didn't even get into how fuck war.
Oh yeah, fuck war.
Yeah, fuck war.
Yeah, fuck war.
War's bad, okay?
Make podcasts, not war. Trademark again. I don't know. That might actually be used. That can't be. I'm sure that's been used before.
All right. I think it's probably time now to move on to favorite moments and lines and that sort.
Works for me, yeah.
Oh, wait. Before we do that, guys, make friends, not war.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to pass on that.
Make therapy appointments, not war. I can keep going. That. This is fun.
Yeah.
We should go to favorites, or else I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Make cross stitches, not war. Make a sweater, not war.
I actually genuinely love the phrase "share your woes with your bros."
Thank you.
That is a pretty good phrase.
Yeah.
Thank you. Feel free to use it in your regular life. Quote me. Please attribute it to me, though.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I don't care. Use it. It's. If that somehow gets back to me, though, I would fucking die. That would be so funny if other people started, like, using that phrase. Like, the dream. Truly wouldn't do anything to change anything, but that would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Hear my own line quoted back to me. Anyways, yes, favorite parts. That's where we're going to now. Yeah, number one for me, obviously, is Worf in the turbo, like the doors open for the turbo lift, and Danar is like shooting, and Worf pushing Riker to the side and then sticking his little head out to see if it's safe, and then bolting, just like rushing Danar. Loved that. I loved Picard at the end of the episode. Hold on, let me find it. It's in my notes, but it's sideways. Picard goes, when James Cromwell's like, well, Picard, aren't you going to do anything? And Picard's like, in your own words, this is not our affair. We cannot interfere in the natural course of your society's development. And I'd say it's going to develop significantly in the next few minutes. It's like, haha, burn. Like, that's like a mic drop moment if I've ever heard it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that's my favorite moments. I mean, I did like this episode in general. I did think the actor who played Danar was good.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think he really sold it. Him and his Kevin Nealon looking face.
Yeah, I think my favorite moment was O'Brien just yelling more security.
More security. More security.
And one of my favorite more serious moments is a little bit of the conversation that he has with Data, and just being like, so at the end too, because you were talking about it, because he's like, I thought it was a really good conversation because it shows like how much like all his experiences like trouble him, because he's like, I've killed 84 times, which says he's keeping count, which says something about him.
Yeah.
And then he says, like, in my enhanced memory, make sure I remember every single one of those faces, which is like, fuck, man. Like, he's obviously tormented by that. And he's like, can you imagine how I feel? And Data's like, lol, no. Yeah. But then he responds like, I'm envious of you, which I think is really important, because it again demonstrates how much he's haunted by like the things he's done.
Mm-hmm. Oh, a very quick side note. I will say I did think this episode for once did a good job of like taking the exterior person and kind of making our main cast kind of woven into the actual story. Because it was about Danar, but like he interacts with like Troy gets to be really in there. Worf is in there a few times. Picard's in there a few times. So I did think it was like integrated better than, because like there was not what's it called, consequences from the team, but they were actually relevant to the plot by the end. Because we've had so many episodes where something has happened, and literally, if they didn't even come on, if everybody in the Enterprise just didn't move for the entire episode, nothing would have changed. It's just this external person having all these issues or whatever. But with this, it actually felt better integrated than what I've seen in the past.
Yeah, because I think it's because whenever we see Danar, it's it's from the perspective of the Enterprise crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you that I think they integrated him pretty well.
Mm-hmm. The line that did it for me was Picard's line in the Ready Room when he's talking with James Cromwell, which so the line is a matter of internal security, the age-old cry of the oppressor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just
I wrote that down.
That's good shit.
Yeah.
I quite like that line. And
Yeah.
it, obviously, it really ties in well to the ending and the way that Picard decides to just be like, nope, this is your problem now. Because now it very much fits with the ideals that we've already seen him espouse throughout the episode. But I did kind of stifle a laugh when I can't remember if it was him or Troy says this person's been in jail. What was this man's crime? Well, he killed 3 people to get out of jail, so that's a crime. That's several crimes.
Yep.
Oh, also, shit, I totally forgot to mention this earlier. This is the first time we see a Jeffries tube on TNG.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, and also you notice it is not the Jeffries tube we will ever see again in TNG.
Yeah.
So is there a point of me asking what a Jeffries tube is at this point? We're never going to see it again?
Named... No, okay, you will see Jeffries
he said
tubes
it.
tons.
Oh, they said it. Oh, I remember.
Yeah,
okay.
Essentially, they're internal, getting around the ship. What do you call them?
They're like vents, but there's gadgetry and shit in them.
You know, I do remember them saying that, and I was like, I don't know what that means, but whatever. I do remember that guy.
The reason they're called Jeffries tubes is they are named after one of the people who designed the original Enterprise for TOS, named Matt Jeffries. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean the actual guy who designed the ship from the real world point of view. I don't mean the person who did it in universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
cool. It's
basically they're kind of they're maintenance accesses.
Yeah, that's a good description of them.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And you will see them throughout Star Trek. They are nearly always a plot point.
Yeah.
Or an excuse to get from plot point to plot point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with that, I think it's time to get into predictions for the next episode.
Yes.
So the next episode is called The High Ground.
Okay.
Yeah, and so your tidbit for the episode is... Sorry, I was silent because I was waiting for Jeff to make a Star Wars joke.
Hey.
Yeah, so your tidbit is that Dr. Crusher gets kidnapped by rebels.
And none of the rebels are played by Ewan McGregor.
Oh my god, Dr. C! If any of them harms her, they will have to answer to me 31 years in the future. After I watched this episode, I don't know if Gates McFadden has any social media, but I messaged her
She
being
does.
like, you okay? You all right? I'm thinking of
She
you
has a
this time.
podcast.
She does?
She does. It's really not interesting. It's basically boomers talking with boomers.
Oh.
Yeah, about very boomery stuff.
Like health insurance?
No, keeping in mind these are
Taxes.
actors. So, yeah, they're talking about how, I decided
Pensions.
to get into my latest hobby of flying airplanes. And it's like, okay, that sort of thing. Where it's like, it's neat. They're interesting stories, but it's not something that any of us could even remotely relate to.
Is anybody building small ships into a bottle?
I do not play with toys.
They're building Lego sets. Okay. So the higher ground.
The high ground.
Oh, the high ground.
Yeah, it's over Anakin. I have the high ground.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's what we were waiting for. And Dr. C gets kidnapped by rebels. Princess Leia busts in. Okay, well, classic. We're going to a new planet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I would assume the rebels kidnap her because they need her for maybe their leader. Maybe, okay, so maybe there's... Okay, so this is a rebellion to, like, you know, a government that's, like, I don't know, having some issues, or they're just bad or something. So they've got... So I guess maybe there's, like, a civil war going, and maybe the leader of the rebellion is, like, injured, and they're like, well, we've had, like, maybe... like healers who could sort of do superficial shit, but they're like, this is a major thing. We need someone who can, like, you know, take one single utensil and figure out what's wrong with this person and scan them to fix them. So so maybe they're on the planet to facilitate peace of some kind, and Dr. C is there for, like, as Picard's guest. And I just came up with a whole other idea in my head too, but let's just focus on this one. So yeah, she gets kidnapped because they need her to help the person who's very injured. Mm-hmm. But I was also thinking, what if this is related to her backstory? Because I think in the episode where she falls in the hole, her grandmother was from some other, like, another planet or something. And there's something with drama there. I don't remember. That was season 1. That was a whole 2 seasons ago. Who can remember? But maybe... what if this is the planet where her family is from? Man, I'm switching gears real fast. What if this is the planet where her family is from, and maybe her family is part of, like, the rebels, and maybe they are part of this whatever civil war that's happening on this planet, and when she's there, they're like, oh fuck, we need to go grab her, we need to talk to her, because she's got a voice, so we need, like she's close to Picard, so they were like, oh, maybe she would be a good person to, like, speak on behalf of us or get our, like, demands across or something. I'm going with that one.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going with a Dr. C backstory.
Nice. All right. So if you'd like to see if Dory's correct, watch along with us and join us for the next episode of Fully Functional, a TNG podcast.
Goodbye.